Indian space startup AgniKul Cosmos broke multiple records at once. It was founded by their CEO Srinath Ravichandran, a Wall Street trader turned aerospace engineer.
Today, you are launching, taking off rockets. Don't let anyone ever tell you that this can't be done. And if you have a dream, you got to protect it.
A lot of people actually have a lot of ambitions. They want to do a lot of things, but at some point, or because of whatever distractions they have, certain other priorities take over. But then they never want to go back to what they really wanted to do.
What was it for you that wanted you to pay attention to that dream that you had?
I'll go back to the starting point of space for me, which was a childhood passion, right?
Okay.
Grew up watching India's rockets flying from my terrace. So that was where my passion started. At that time, I'm talking about like early 2000s, it felt like a one-off bet, which is why I went into finance, because at that point, when you're like in your early 20s, it's a very measurable metric. What do your friends earn? What do you earn, right? It's a number. You can easily compare numbers. So once I started working there, I got a job at AXA. I was on a trading desk, literally trading bonds day in and day out to manage the portfolio with whatever financial engineering knowledge I had. I realized that something in me was still not, okay. I felt the void. I kept feeling the void. The void.
Can you walk us through what was that void at that time and not being able to pay attention to it?
I love filmmaking, so I used to take,
Filmmaking?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I went to film school for 4 years in the evening when I was still on Wall Street. I used to like writing.
Okay.
Right? And they always used to, in the writing classes, they always spoke about the story you tell yourself. Anytime you're convincing yourself to do anything, you have a narrative for it. It was getting very apparent to me that I'm having a question and I'm choosing to ignore it. And I could not, get myself to justify why I'm making the choice. So that is what made me actually attack this question. I literally went out, like when I resigned from my finance job, that was the only thing in my mind. I knew 10 years later something I can do, but 10 years later I can't do a space tech, venture. And the reason why I was pushing it away started looking more and more.
In this video, I talked to Srinath. He's had multiple degrees in engineering from India, later on from Ivy League in US, climbed the corporates, did pretty well, was in Wall Street, but he still felt a void. Some questions that he could not ignore anymore. And he then transitioned to today, launching rockets in India through his startup venture, AgniKul Cosmos, first of many. He's inspiring many, including me. In this video, we get into what was the void, what were some of these questions, and how did he transition? Let's find out in this video. This is Nitin Dua, serving you with love.
So I have a wonderful opportunity today to sit with Srinath.
Thank you.
Thank you, Srinath. And we'll get into what all you have done. But today you are launching, taking off rockets, as we spoke of before. And this is completely different from the previous world that you were operating in with bonds and finance and corporate America, right?
Yep.
What I'd love to start with, Srinath, is this particular notion, right? That I know you had written somewhere and I got a sense of it. Don't let anyone ever tell you that this can't be done.
Yep.
And if you have a dream, you got to protect it.
Yep.
Is it from Pursuit of Happiness?
Yeah, it is. Okay. It is.
All right. Yeah, I remember seeing it somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely, I have my own perspective on it. But I would love to get yours because I think that's something that you had written somewhere.
Yeah.
And I will start there.
Substatus, literally. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll start there.
No, I think a lot of people actually have a lot of ambitions. They want to do a lot of things. But at some point, or because of whatever distractions they have, certain other priorities take over, which is okay, which happens. But then they never want to go back to what they really wanted to do, right? And I think that part of it is where the protection of the dream part comes in, because it's very hard for the environment that you're in to say, okay, this is your dream, go ahead, do it, we'll enable you. That's great, that'll also happen. But that doesn't mean that, in case there is a distraction, you can't come back. So in my case, particularly, so there was a big chunk of my life that I spent on Wall Street before doing rockets today.
Yeah.
And I think that is that reverting back to what I really wanted to do, which is space. I think that's what this is about, right?
It's just phenomenal. I mean, it's just, there's so many things that I want to get into. But I mean, protecting it and coming back, and you spoke about distraction and priority. I want to get into a lot of that. But before we get there, right? I mean, just walk us through like, what was it for you that wanted you to pay attention to that dream that you had? Like many of us, and probably some of you listening in, who've been chasing. And I think that's what we've been told. Many of us have been told that go chase this, and you were pretty good at it, right? So are many of you who are watching in, right? But somewhere we got sidetracked for what the real dream was. And it'd be different for you, which is launching rockets. It's different for me, and it's different for somebody listening in. But you made sure that you paid attention to it.
Yep.
Didn't get distracted anymore. But what was going on at that version of you, which was doing so well, corporate America, corporate finance, living in New York, earning a bunch of dollars, the titles are in place, the accolades are there. And now, something is wanting you to pay attention.
Yeah.
Just be there in this moment, if you can. And walk us through, like, what was it that made you transition, really?
I'll go back to the starting point of space for me, which was a childhood passion, right?
Okay.
Grew up watching India's rockets flying from my terrace, because I don't know if you know this, in Chennai, you can actually see a rocket launch with your bare eyes. You don't need special instruments. You can just see it like a streak of smoke going up. PSLV rocket or a GSLV rocket. So that was where my passion started. It helped that everyone in my family was in physics in some way, so all of that was there.
Okay.
But I took choices away from space because I was a little nervous whether I would get a right job, whether I get a career, whether I can make a career out of it, right?
Yeah.
And at that time, which I'm talking about like early 2000s, it felt like a one-off bet.
Yes.
That if I don't get into the space agency, I'm pretty much doomed. Right? So I did electrical engineering, and then I saw a lot of my friends make a lot of money in finance. And I was just stuck wondering, hey, I'm not even doing aerospace, which is my, real passion. And I'm still not making a lot of money, which is why I went into finance, because at that point, when you're like in your early 20s, it's a very measurable metric. What do your friends earn? What do you earn, right? It's a number. You can easily compare numbers. And so I went there and I went to, so 2-3 things happened at that point. I went in 2008, which is when we had the, subprime crisis. So the very degree that I went to do, which was financial engineering, was being blamed for one of the biggest crises of the century.
I remember the time I was actually at Bank of America where it got, when they bought out Merrill Lynch.
Okay, yeah. Those are hard times, right?
Yeah.
So that sort of gave me a reality check in the sense that, okay, it's great, but bad things can happen. It's not like New York means all your dreams will come true.
Absolutely.
The next thing so once I started working there, I got a job at AXA. I was on a trading desk, literally trading bonds day in and day out to manage the portfolio with whatever financial engineering knowledge I had. I realized that something in me was still not, okay. I felt the void. I kept feeling the void. The void. Yes. And I could have chosen to just, be like, that there is going to be some voice, but it's okay. But because I already switched careers once, right, from electrical to finance.
Yeah.
There was some confidence in me that, hey, I have this degree, I have done something, something can come out of all this, but if I don't give it a shot, I'm always going to feel, guilty. I'm going to feel regretful of it at some point.
Fantastic.
Which I didn't want to do. So my real thought in my head was, I know space. I didn't even think of rockets at that time. It had to be something in space tech. And then I realized I have all these degrees, I have this New York tag to me, all that. Something I can make out of it. It's not like I'm going to be jobless for the rest of my life. But I should try this for a good 10 years, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that happens, and I guess this is the universe working with you, if you believe in that, is if you really try, if you fully want to get into something, some door will open. Very important point is it is most likely not going to be the door that you wanted to open, but it will be to the same room. I think that is a very important aspect. At least for me, it happened that way because I actually was so hesitant about the space sector taking me in. In finance, I've seen finance taking everyone. Like you can be a physicist and then come into finance, but the other way around, I've not seen much.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do a formal degree. So I did an aerospace engineering program, moved to LA, Los Angeles, because SpaceX is there, and took a apartment 5 miles from Hawthorne just to be around that community.
Oh, wow.
And just spent a lot of time talking. And you know what happened? It started getting normalized a little. What felt like an outsider, where I felt like it was a dream, I can't really go towards, it started becoming a little more real. I was intentionally putting myself in environments where there were a lot of people building rockets.
Wow.
Right? And even though I was not a citizen, and there are always security restrictions, I never got past the lobby of SpaceX for a very long time. But I was in an environment where people were talking about building rockets. So it almost felt like, oh yeah, if you talk to 20 people a day about building rockets, it feels like that's something you can do, right?
Absolutely.
So that is what I think I tried from my side, but there is always going to be some time it takes before you get a response. I think a lot of people get misled in that.
It's, again, so beautiful, and thank you for being so candid, because this is what a lot of people experience. But sometimes, especially the void that you spoke of after all the accolades and formally chasing what you are best known to do, or maybe your friends are doing, and maybe that's what was told to you, and somehow you observed that, even if it wasn't told. But you paid attention to that void. Can you walk us through what was that void at that time? How did it feel not really pursuing what you had seen in the child, the launch of the rockets, and not being able to pay attention to it? Can you just, because many of us have experienced it. Few of us have the courage to then take this step from there on, and you beautifully have. And of course, it's very inspiring to see like how far this has already come. And I would love for us to understand that space, because that's a very delicate space where you can choose to just continue as is and stay still, pretty much in that same space. Of course, the space that you became a part of is one very mental, the new conditioning that you got, that this is normal now, like to think of rockets, build rockets. That comes a little later, but it's the navigation at that time, which is, I think, quite hard, right? And understandably so, because we were never trained to do this, right? So
You see, Srinath had the degrees, the titles, doing well externally, climbing the corporates, yet internally feeling the void, to now transition to building rockets and doing phenomenal. So did my coach Samir. He did something phenomenal too. He was a C-suite executive, climbing the corporate, doing well with titles, and externally well, yet feeling the same void, to now building something of his own that he's in flow state with, as he calls it. I'm so grateful for it, and so am I for my own transition. I had the same void, the questions that I could not ignore anymore. If you are a senior professional and you sit with those questions, you feel the void, it deserves attention. You deserve attention. I welcome you to check out the website. Link is in the description below, duanitin.com, and connect with us.
tell us, like, what was the void at that time that said, okay, man, enough of this. Now I got to do something at least for this.
So I'll take you to one other thing that I used to do on the side, which I love filmmaking. So I used to take,
Filmmaking?
Okay. So I went to film school for 4 years in the evening when I was still on Wall Street. So one of the things that, I used to like writing.
Okay.
Right. And they always used to, in the writing classes, they always spoke about the story you tell yourself. Right? And it's a very deep concept actually, because anytime you're convincing yourself to do anything, you have a narrative for it. To yourself. I'm not even talking about what you tell your friends, what you tell your partner, what you tell your parents. I'm talking about the story you tell yourself to either pursue or not pursue something.
100%.
And this was actually very evident for me in the writing class, because I was supposed to point this out as a problem, right? Because that story usually does not add up in the outside world. That is something that you're telling yourself. And if you write that in a film, people will catch it. That's the context in which I was told about that. But that stayed with me. Right? So every time I'm pitching something, or every time I'm telling myself something, I know that I'm connecting the dots just to feel good about it, or to convince myself into it. So the moment that got a little apparent, it started feeling like I am intentionally not paying attention to this question. I could have easily, chosen to do something else. I could have chosen to just be in the same path that I was in. I had already gotten promoted 4 or 5 times over the last 9 years at that time. I was in AXA for 8 years and then in AIG. So I could have easily done that, but it was getting very apparent to me that I'm having a question and I'm choosing to ignore it.
Yes.
And I could not, get myself to justify why I'm making the choice. Right? Because at some point, if I'm just getting a little logical about it, it just felt like, at the worst, this is a 10-year detour. That's it. I'll come back. I have a few degrees. the world is a big place. It's not like I'm going to be jobless for the rest of my life, right? And if I didn't give this a shot, there is no way there is going to be any excuse for that. So that is what made me actually attack this question. I literally went out, like when I resigned from my finance job, that was the only thing in my mind. I knew 10 years later something I can do, but 10 years later I can't do a space tech, venture.
Yeah.
So, and the reason why I was pushing it away started looking more and more flimsy for me. It just felt like I'm just finding a story to stay away from space because I'm very comfortable here.
Yes. It is that comfort that, is hard to sort of beat.
Yeah.
And as you said, like, you are yourself coming in your own way and letting those doubts take over at times. And it's beautiful how the filming, scripting, that part worked out for you to come to the awareness that you separate yourself from that story and see what's really happening in action, right?
Exactly.
And then do something about it.
Yes.
And that's beautiful because, I was watching the theater that my daughter is currently doing, and I was speaking to once I saw the theater.
Okay.
I could see the theater of life.
Oh, okay.
That's what we're doing. Like, we are playing all these roles,
Right.
and we are in the theater. And you choose what role you will play.
Yes.
But from there to this journey of transitioning, walk us through, like, what did it mean from that stage to where you are, where now you have, like, of course, the funding and other things are in place. You may or may not want to sort of go in that direction. That's completely the choice. But of course, for something like this, you require a lot of capital to, like, launch rockets literally. And the ambition, I feel like I was talking to you earlier, like, you want to be the best, as you said, the best rocket company that's out there. And I think it's totally possible. It's a hard problem, but I think if you're protecting enough, possible. Yeah. So how did you navigate from that to then really building where you are?
I think it is about coming up with